Hello everyone, my name is Kenmei and welcome to Project Resplendent, a series of videos where I give early units in Fire Emblem Heroes a resplendent treatment based on your suggestions, so feel free to leave a few suggestions in the comments. This time around we have our first female for the badge being Niðavellir Lissa. It was a pretty interesting suggestion and we're back for our third unit of this badge. This time around, we have our first female for the badge being Niðavellir Lissa. It was a pretty interesting suggestion, and I found it really challenging, and of course I took it. For reference, we don't have a lot to use as reference, but I mainly went with Fafnir, Atri, Otter, and Merrick. It's not like we have a lot to work with, but we're going to do our best. And right away, what was the most interesting part of the challenge was that Lissa's design both fits really well and really doesn't fit with the Niðavellir aesthetic. And what I mean by that is that a few parts translate very well with the Niðavellir aesthetic, like part of the headpiece, corset, the boots and leggings, but maybe also the gloves. But other than that, a lot of other parts and that are defining features for Lissa were really hard to nail. And aside from the reference I cited earlier, one important thing I use as reference to try and make this resplendent was also the sage yarn, like the mecha-rider, because actually the metal part was, I guess, easier to work on if you match the aesthetic of the sage yarn instead of basically any other character. So this is why I made the headpiece look this way, and this is how I worked for the crinoline. By the way, the crinoline is the metal piece that allows Lissa's dress to be puffy. So you're welcome. Another part that was really hard to nail was also this little chest piece that goes up to her neck with no attachment whatsoever. You can guess it was pretty hard to see how to translate that as faithfully as possible, and so I just decided that there would be holes in her top, and actually I think it works pretty well. I also had a hard time to see how I would make the apron fit the Niðavellir aesthetic, and I had a few ideas. I eventually went on making the apron actually look like the capes, the bicolor capes that you see on Otter. You can also see that on Regan, but since Otter was a bigger inspiration, I decided I would try and make that flap to keep a bit of white and still have a bit more color. Maybe she's a bit too white for Niðavellir Resplendent, but I feel that Atri actually gives a precedent for having this white tight top, those white leggings, things like that. Another little detail I've noticed on each resplendent for Niðavellir is the fact that we also have this little gear brooch, and you will see that later, but I added a little Easter egg in this one. You might already be able to read it from the time-lapse. I also tried, I usually don't work on the damage art and the attack art, but I thought it would be a nice warm-up to find a way to see how I captured Lissa's personality, and I think it helped me try something a bit more dynamic than what I've done usually. I've had a hard time recently making dynamic poses, but I think this one is pretty dope. And with the current workflow, it was pretty easy to just do the lining and all all of the other parts. I try to make it as simple as possible while making it elaborate, and I think I'm finding a workflow here. And I must admit, I don't know how many Lissa's ult I will draw in the future, because a crinoline, my god, trying to make a crinoline work is easier said than done, and while I'm happy about how it eventually looked, I must admit it took me a long time. So we're already done with the line, the color went. The color, actually, we can talk about the color a bit. I actually first thought that the darker yellow part would be white to mimic her second apron in her original art, but eventually I decided otherwise, thanks to the help of one of my good friends, Swift. It was really hard to nail because trying to stay faithful to the original spirit while also mixing it with something else and adding your own little touch so that it doesn't feel just like, it doesn't feel like Ninian, basically. Resplendent Ninian is adorable, but if I could do slightly better, that would be awesome. I'm not there yet. I'm far from being there yet. But eventually, I think I might reach that level. This is my goal after all. But you might see it now. The little Easter egg. I thought since Lissa doesn't have the Exalts brand, I thought, why not make her wear it in the little gear brooch? So that might not be a good idea, because technically there's a reason why she doesn't have her brand. But come on, just this once, just for the family. And I think the way I approached the shading this time, it wasn't like Yusuke Kozaki, but I think eventually it wouldn't be that far off. Of course, if I took the time to really mimic the shading, I guess I could have managed to make it even better, of course, but I'm still trying to find the right balance between making them quickly and making them good. And I think I managed to find a good balance this time around. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with this one. I hope you also like it. And now that she's done, we can look forward for the next Kensplendent. Hoping they don't do that before my next video, because a lot is happening in my life recently, and so it's taking me a lot of time, and so month has passed since Batre. But next one should be Hellquan, and I really hope Aya stop making Hell Resplendents and doesn't take Quan, because I have no other idea otherwise. So thanks a lot for watching this video. The summer first summoning session is going to be in a few days. I will be away while this video airs. So I really hope you have a nice day, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, everyone. Bye bye!